What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Sublimely Elegant here, as always, and welcome to another Doom Builder 2 tutorial. In this episode, we're going to be covering shadows and lighting. Shadows and lighting isn't so much difficult as it is tedious. First, I would like to start off with some set sector brightnesses that I tend to stick to. And you might like to as well. First off, so that all are aware, in visual mode you can hold down Control and scroll on the mouse wheel down or up in order to change the sector's brightness. The changed sector brightness will show up in the bottom left of the screen. You're going to want to look at the bottom left of the screen quite a bit to know exactly what values that I'm using. The lowest I would ever go is 80, and that's if you need it to be pitch black. I know you can barely see this on YouTube, but it is still slightly visible. If I go one lower here, it's now pitch black to me. 80 is probably the lowest I would use. For a medium, I would stick to 112 or 128. Either of these two are very nice. Happy mediums for whenever you're dealing with moody rooms, but nothing bright. And then for man-made lighting, I would stick to 208, excuse me. So these are the main brightnesses that I would use personally in my maps, and of course you're going to want variants on all of these for very specific situations and a very specific amount of moodiness and how scared you really want your player. So you'll want to adjust these as you see fit. Of course, these are just values that I recommend. For our lighting, we're going to be using a nice little pillar light setup, just as I had in the first episode for the Creating a Level Live Belligerent Cats. So we've got our room here, and I've got this light up against a wall here, and I'm just going to put that up like that. And in order to do this right, we're going to have to find the corner where it doesn't look jagged on this line is the best way to find the angular distance, the angular proportions of the way the light would affect everything. So right now you can see that it's very jagged. Hopefully you're going to need HD and be very close to your screen, but that is jagged, and then when I go to here, it no longer is. Nope, wait, down. There it is. Alright, now it no longer is. And that's what you need to look for when you're creating your lighting. So to make things a bit easier on us, I'm going to go ahead and make this a bit more smaller, like that, and to the side. So we're going to want our perfectly straight line, if possible. It's not always possible. So right there, and then again, right there. Yes. Alright, so now we have the area where the light would be cast. I'm going to make this much smaller as well. So we've got our light. We have the area where the light would be cast. And we can actually go ahead and just texture these so that it doesn't look like complete utter shit in this room. That way we can see a bit more of a real-world scenario of what we're dealing with here. So I'm just going to quickly pop some textures down, just like that. Alright, so we've got our room. It's got set brightness all over across the board, though. It's all the same. We want this light to be illuminating, so we want this to be 208, just like that. Our shadows, this is very much specific to how you feel the shadow should be. Like I said, I like 128. And 112 fairly nicely. So both of those are 128 now, and it looks much like the light is actually casting a light source. But let's say you had something in the way. Now we could do a pillar, but let's do it this way. Let's do a little interesting, a little bit of a different way. We'll do a wall with a hole in it, just like this. So we're gonna go ahead and lift up our wall here, and just go ahead and texture those like that. So we've got our wall here. Now clearly shadows and light wouldn't go all the way through the wall like it is here. How are we going to find where this is? And this is the same technique for even if you're doing a pillar. But you want to find the two vertices at the edge of the texture that has the light. Find and click on one of those and then stretch it to the vertices of what it's intersecting with. And find where it will reach the opposite wall or other object in a room without passing through the wall itself. So if I hold shift, I can unlock it from these vertices and I can slide it along the wall quite nicely, and it would do that. But here's a little thing we need to keep in mind as well. We're also going to be illuminating this part still too, so we're going to have to work on that in a second. But this is the back corner where it would intersect with the wall and shadow would be cast. So we need to do that, and then create sector vertices to actually line up onto this, and then use our make sectors mode to separate these, because as you can see, it is illuminating the other sector when it's highlighted, so it is clearly the same sector. We don't want that. Now it's not. Alright, now we want to go to the other side of our light here and do the same thing. Now of course this time it's intersecting with the top part, so we do that, click, hit enter, zoom in and fix all of our vertice problems. And then for this is pretty simple. Light would clearly hit this, so we just take a vertice and just stretch it right over, just like that. Because it's only this narrow part that we need to be truly correct, like this. These are shadows. So now we've got it bouncing right nicely through into this area. It's a quite nice effect, and you can tell it's really working because none of this wall is truly exposed to that light, so light wouldn't be hitting it. This wall is, and it passes right through, creating the shadows. Quite a nice effect, and can be used to a great extent in your maps if you're careful with it. It is a very nice effect. It does add a lot of depth and detail to your maps, but at the same time it can be overused as well and used wrong. It's a hard one to overuse though, I will say that. Now we'll do one more here just for you guys' sake. Well, what if you want a light that isn't bulging out? In fact, let's actually do it this way to give you guys a bit of a different example. What if you want a light that isn't bulging out? So I'm going to create this pillar here, and this is going to be what our light is on as opposed to the way it was before. Oh, line, there we go. Stretch that out. Vertices here, here, boom. Alright, so now we'll take our textures from the other light and just copy them over real quick. Okay, and then we're going to want a metal texture for our edges of the pillar. Just like that. Alright, so now our light is no longer jutting out, and at the same time it's also detached from the wall. So this will present you with a bit different of a way that you would do things, but not different enough that it's really, really different. So we're just going to go ahead and make an actual pillar this time, as opposed to our wall hole. Alright, so now we've got another situation where we have a light with something that's going to be blocking that light, thus creating a shadow. You still want to find the two vertices, which the light texture is on, which is this 16 line def here. We want the one vertice and then create a line out at the angular difference that is 45-degree angle. You can also do something a bit wider, and really it's up to you on how wide you want the light's angle to be. I personally just use this these angles because they are nice and easy to work with. You may choose to do otherwise, so clearly it needs to intersect with that, so we want to carry it all the way through to the back of the wall that or object that it would hit, just as before, and then line it up so that the part of that line there is intersecting with that vertex. Click, hit enter. Then you want to go ahead and zoom in and fix the little vertices. Do it same for the other side. It's going to be hitting that part of the wall there. I'll hold shift to unlock it for a moment. Click, release shift, hit enter. Fix our vertices. There we go. Make sectors mode. Quite nice. Make sure nothing is a duplicate sector. That's all the same sector. That's fine. So now we've got all of this. So change these to 208. 208. Change these to 128. And last but not least, shadow. 128. We now have a shadow off of the pillar coming from something that isn't attached to a wall. So you can see kind of how that's working there. And it's also a flat light. And instead of a light cast, it's more of a shadow cast. These are two very opposite examples. It's literally, this wall is just an inverted pillar. Is really what it is. Instead of just a pillar there, it's just walls there and empty space. And instead of walls there, it's just a pillar. So these are literally exact opposite scenarios of what you would be using this effect for. And the last thing that you could really want to know is sector properties. And this one can be fun. In fact, let's actually do it with this. So, the first thing to actually probably point out is how flickering lights work. So we're going to go ahead and make a tiny sector and just go in-game real quick to see what this is actually doing. So I've got this sector here, and this is full brightness, and I'm going to tell the full brightness sector here to blink randomly. Okay, so this sector now has a light blink effect. So we'll go ahead and put a player start, press play, and see what she does. You should see it blink, right? But how do you know how dark it's going to blink? And why does it have to be dark? Well, there are two reasons. Well, one reason for that and one explanation for that. The reason that it blinks as dark as it does is because the nearest sector it has to be darker that it's blinking to. If this sector is set to blink right now and this is brighter, this isn't going to do anything. This sector won't blink to be bright. It will just sit here and be a lone room. So that's all that really happens. It has to be a darker brightness that the blink or the flickering is going to be happening to, but you don't always have a situation where you can just have random brightnesses sitting in the middle of rooms. So how could you circumvent this? Well, there's a quite easy way. Whoops, we don't want that there. Just make a sector somewhere on a wall where you don't ever need to put anything there. Make a tiny little sector like this, raise it to the roof, and just put the texture back on it. You've now got a sector touching it that is completely invisible to the player. So now, even though this has a light blink effect, and there's no visible darkness differences in the sector, the one right next to it here is completely black. So now when we go on our map, despite not seeing that, it's going to blink to complete blackness. So that is how that effect truly works. It is a brighter sector blinking or flickering to the darkest nearest sector. So using that effect here can be quite nice. What if your light is broken? For this, you're going to need to get rid of these two lines and make sure that this whole piece here is all a sector. So our make sectors mode isn't working on that, so we're going to have to redraw this sector real quick, which is very easy in this case because we have all the vertices here. So we can just draw there, click, and our sector is now back with its brightness. And now this is all one sector, all of this brightness. We can actually just go in, tell this to blink randomly, and now if we go ahead and move our player start into here, you'll see that the light will turn on and off. And whenever it does do this, the shadow goes away for a second because it's the same darkness as the shadow. So it gives the illusion that the light is truly casting that shadow, and when it's off, the whole room is just shadowed. We can make the effect a bit more extreme by changing the brightnesses of our shadows. So we can make this 96 and 96, like that. And we'll try it again one more time. It's quite a nice effect. It's very useful for being a piece of scary factor for the player. Plus, there's no doors. This is already plenty creepy of a map. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was most entertaining and learnable, if that's a thing. If it isn't, it is now. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.